When the first fighting games came out on PS4, the market of fighting controllers was not developed as we know. In fact, you would have to wait a collector edition of a game to have its licensed controller. Mad Catz wasn't there yet, and since the DualShock 4 was hard to convert, modders started to use those two as donor for pad hacking. Ori came out later with this licensed pad, the Ori Fighting Commander 4, which was a simple rehash of the Commander 3 Pro for the PS3, but was an excellent donor for pad hacking. It was cheap and easy to hack, so it became quite popular among the modders. Not longer after that, Brooks started to sell the PS3 PS4 fighting board, and shortly after that, the famous Universal Fighting Board. And starting from there was no reason anymore for modded. I still kept all the shots from the previous modder for no reason. It's only missing the PCB, and I thought maybe one day I could make a cool project with them. One of my friends still loves his Fighting Commander 4, but gets a bit faster with time on a missing feature, like the limited PS3 and PS4 compatibility with no X input for PC, the mushy button, the turbo which could be something else, etc. Since there's a lot of space inside, I've checked if maybe I could fit a Brook USB, and after taking some measurements, yeah, it fits tight, but you can put one. You need to cut all the support inside, and with the 8, you can literally put 3 or 4 PCB stack, which is a good thing since I want to replace the button with some real arcade macro switches. One of his main complaints is the D-pad we found mushy and unreliable at some point. So this is because the inside is a classic silicone rubber pads with contact on the PCB, which means it became flabby with time and the contacts become dirty because of wear. So after it, first by trying to recreate the Diamond D-pad like the Xbox One Elite, since I find it a bit better for corner and circle motions. And the whole mechanism will be similar to a regular joystick like Senwa's or Semitsu, which means some kind of hot spherical support allowing the shaft to move. And the shaft will make contact with four macro switches for each direction. I don't know yet which side the PCB will be, so it will be either like that or on the other side. So you will have physically the same thing as a regular stick, but that also means you will have a spring to force the neutral position of the D-pad, and I had to find a good solution to avoid the D-pad spinning. To give you an idea, this is all the prototypes I made so far, mostly to confirm all the shapes are fitting inside the Ori. After checking, I'm not sure I'm going to keep the diamond shape because I can't find a good way to prevent it to spinning. But I want to keep some original parts and make all the new system fits inside as much as possible. Okay, now maybe it's another side. Yes. So now we put the shaft and the support, and they all stack together, and there will be the PCB which enough space in the middle for let the shaft moving. So the course of the shaft will reach the micro switches, something like that. The closing will retain the whole thing as long as the spring. Then the whole thing will fit inside the Fighting Commander 4 without any screws, and if I need some additional course for the shaft, I can cut the plastic. And I even have the previous hole on the back of the pad. So this should have a nice clicking feel, and I have the same mechanical design of the joystick. But unfortunately my 3D printer is not calibrating as precisely as I would like. So each time I'm making baby steps, and I cannot lose multiple hours to print something smooth enough to finally see it's not fitting. Eventually I'm going to make a magnetic cross D-pad so I can stack the diamond D-pad on the top of it. And for now I will just put this on hold and focus on the electronic side of this mod. At least my friend will have a working pad and give me feedback while I'm working on the D-pad. Another feature I wanted to add is the Mad Catz MLG Pro USB support, so if your cable goes bad you can just change it. You can find both male and female plug on AliExpress, and if you look on the pad you can see we have more than enough space to put it. So if you check the connector, which is look like this, I also wanted to add some kind of natural support within the shell of the pad, and the connector will just be whole when you close it. So I made this 3D part. It's the same part you have to print twice, once for the bottom and one for the top part. And like that you can put the plug in a proper support and it will be held without any screw. So I need to remove all the support inside to make room for the broke USB, and then I will make a square cut to put those 3D print parts. There are some slices to fit on the shell, and the epoxy glue will have some strong grip, and I have to do the same thing on the other side. Here are some pics of the cutting process. While I was cutting, I also make a support for the USB so I can screw it down. So I cut the square shapes to fit the support for the MLG plug and add some milliput to fix everything. And you can also see I've removed all the terminal screw and the USB plug on the universal fighting board. So there's the result with the broke USB screw down without any USB and terminal. I kept the headers for the front panel connection and of course the USB plug. Now for the front panel commands, here the new PCB I've designed. You've got all the classic start, select, home. The turbo button can now be switched with the touchpad button with the new switch here. We got the classic LS-DP-RS switch. Replacing the platform selection, we got the lock button for disabling start, select and home, and of course you got the selection switch for the left and right shoulder and trigger layout. I said earlier the head pin connector for G7, G9 and G5 are aligned with the USB, and as you can see it matches perfectly. Of course I'm going to use headers to have enough height so I can just plug when you close the shell. For the punch kick buttons, I made this PCB which was designed originally for the microswitch Sanwa SW68. But unfortunately, even though I took all the measurements, I forgot to take into account the height of the components on the broke USB, the thickness of the wires, the height of the solder blob, etc. So even if I cut the quick connect tabs, it's slightly too high. So for the plan B, I also prepared some holes for Seimitsu MM92, which are designed to be soldered on a PCB. They are also quite shorter than the Sanwa, you can see like that. Ironically, you can find those microswitch on other Hori products, like the Tekken 6 wireless stick for the PS3. So you need 6 of them and you get a full panel. My PCB, this one is not exactly at the right dimension, especially around the stand, so you need to shave a bit. And also you need some stands to fit the PCB here and here. You will end with the microswitch centered, and by just cutting a bit the original caps, you can keep them and reuse them. For the left-right shoulder and trigger buttons, my friend wanted to have some microswitches. The original left and right PCB for the rubber pads are mirrored, so in order to reduce the cost of the fabrication, I made the same one, you just have to flip it. So rather than have two other set for left and another set for right buttons, you can order just 10 of them and you can do 5 controllers. For the microswitch, with the little space I had, I checked for a mouse button, since they are really flat, but even in this category I had to use those ones which are used on the Logitech mouse, and after that you need to modify a little bit the inside of each button to have flat and clean contact on the microswitch. So here everything assembled and ready to be closed. You got the original D-pad. Since I'm using a GST connector, I can easily take it out and replace it by the future one I'm going to design. I let the original space for the PCB, as you can see, but eventually the next one is going to be bigger and maybe get the connector on the bottom. I made a mistake on the design on the PCB, not sure I'm going to Not sure if you're going to see it, but there's a small blob of solder, and this is a missing connection to ground, so I have to correct it. So to close it is not really easy, but it's not difficult either. So you have to plug the turbo and the touchpad. A bit of cable arrangement. Then everything is aligned. If you check the headers, they are perfectly aligned. You just have to close it and put the screw. So here are the final products made of the D-pad. I skipped putting the screws. You have a nice clicking feeling on the bumper buttons and on the trigger button. It is not unpleasant, you know, it's really like clicking on a mouse. So yeah, nice feeling for the button, and you get the USB plug. Not really liking the side of this connector, it's a bit flimsy, but yeah, you can always use the original cab anyway. So the joystick is connected. You can see I got my all the color because this is plugged as Xbox 360. So I'm going to try to show you. Up, maybe there. Not easy, and so it's working, no problem. And if so, right now I am in touchpad. I'm going to move to turbo, and turbo is working. Now I can move back to touchpad. Yeah. Thanks for watching.